Hey mamas, welcome back to my channel. So it has been a minute since I have posted anything on YouTube. I've been doing shorts, but I haven't done any long form content for a couple weeks now. Trying to get into the swing of doing long form content, but it is really not something that I am used to anymore. Being on TikTok and IG and everywhere else with short form. But I'm here and I'm trying, so please give me another chance. But anyway, this is going to be about basically how to stay lean, thin, over 50, or over 40, which I am, and even over 30, through no actual like motivation or discipline, but like brain reprogramming. So let me explain. Basically what I mean by that is I do a lot of, to stay 114 pounds, which I currently am, I do a lot of like toned. I do a lot of mental reprogramming. And what I mean by that is I don't, stress out about food and what I'm going to eat. If I want to eat a lot one day, I'm going to eat a lot that day. I'm going to, cycle back to maybe eating a little less the next day, whatever works for whatever's going on. Because life is not like this straight, perfect line. Life takes us in all different kinds of directions. And sometimes we're not always like perfect with the way we eat, depending on your lifestyle, what you do for work, etc. And I think they tend to generalize things when they're talking about eating habits and diet. They always want to kind of like put us in this box of like, okay, well, you're this body type, or you do this fitness level, so you should eat this and this amount of calories per day, and everything's like micro calories and your BMI, and all of that is important. You need to know all that stuff. And when you're first starting a diet plan, you should track your calories. But what I do is more mental than any of that, and that's what works best for me, and I'm going to give you guys that tip today, so stay tuned.
Restart, reset, and refocus as many times as you need. You are your own greatest project.
So the trick to staying basically lean and maintenance for years on end, which you see, some of the celebrities do, and some of the fitness influencers do that are really top dog influencers, is they do mind games. They literally play mind games on themselves. So basically you have to position yourself to remember when you were at your heaviest. So if you've lost any weight, if you've seen any success, remember the effort that it took to do it physically, to track your calories, your macros, to diet, to exercise, etc. Remember how hard the process was, and keep that in your mind very strongly and vividly. And even if you haven't done that, think about where you are now. And think about where you want to be mentally. Everything starts here with the thought, right? We can't even start a diet plan or an exercise plan without thinking first about it. What are we doing? What exercise plan? How long is this going to take us? What's the time commitment? Am I going to be successful? We start having all these things going and processing in our minds first. So that's why the mind is the strongest tool. And for me, one of my things that I've kind of made up for myself, and I shared with somebody recently, and they thought it was great, was, and this is a matter of opinion, but they thought it was great. And that was that I'm too lazy and too unmotivated to gain weight back, to get out of shape, to work so hard again, or to have to work so hard if you see results, a little bit of results, and have to go backwards or anything like that. So mentally what I do is I reverse engineer whenever I have like a thought that comes into my head that's kind of like trying to stir me down a dark path. Like something that I would have done in the past, like binge out on a bunch of garbage, eat stuff that I know is not going to be any good for me, drink Alcohol is an absolute no-no if you're trying to, you know, see any type of real results with weight loss and health results as well. That's just common sense though. But if you're trying to do any of those things, you have to remember where your starting point was. And by doing that, you will help ignite this thing in you that makes you realize that you don't ever want to go back to those places again. You don't ever want to return to that person that you were, that was insecure, uncomfortable in their own skin, uncomfortable in clothes, uncomfortable around people, uncomfortable taking a photo, uncomfortable this, being on camera. You don't ever want to go back to that person again. So the only way to psych yourself out is to be honest about who you really are and how much a pain threshold you can handle and how many times you want to yo-yo back and forth and how hard you want to work over and over just to accomplish the same thing. So my tip for you is to remember how hard it was, number one, but not to be mean, but also remember how we're all kind of innately, you know, lazy and unmotivated. We have a lot of distractions nowadays, a lot of things to keep us lazy and unmotivated. And don't take this the wrong way, but even if we have a lot going on, if we have kids, if we have jobs, we have responsibility, we all do, animals, pets, you know, friends, family, we're still, even when we have those open windows to do stuff, we don't always take it because we're lazy. We're not motivated. People aren't motivated to really exercise every day, you know? So remember how unmotivated you actually are. And remember that you're not an influencer and you're not a celebrity that has to say beautiful, perfect every single day. Remember all that, and remember that you just want to be in maintenance. You just want to get to a point where you're in maintenance and you're in a comfortable weight and you look good in clothes and you feel better and you feel stronger and you feel healthier. And remember that you never want to be back to that place again. And I know this sounds like common sense in a way, but I'm saying to really remember. I mean, remember how painful it was. Remember that day when you had to start that first diet to get a jump start on your weight loss, and it was just miserable every second of it. Like, you know, even if you're just fasting, it can sometimes be really tough if you're overthinking about it, right? So if you put that word diet on everything and it automatically gets harder. So remember all that, and remember that you're not that motivated a person. You're generally not that motivated to look a certain kind of way on a, you know, your whole life on a regular basis because you're not in front of the camera. You're not a celebrity. You're not an influencer. You know, you're just an everyday person trying to feel better about themselves. Remember all those things, and that will keep you from ever getting back there again. That that binge of, you know, cake, that alcohol binge or party that you went to, and everybody was like, oh, you have to, you know, have a shot, do this, drink a glass of wine, drink multiple glasses of wine, and you forget by the end of the night you've had like 8 glasses of wine. You've had, you know, a cheese plate with crackers. You've had, you know, God knows what, sweets, everything. You've lost, you're not counting shit, right? Remember how out of control you felt with all of that and you did that all the time and didn't even think about the health consequences. Remember how far you've come. Remember that you're too lazy to go back there. I know this sounds ridiculous. Like, remember that you're too lazy to go backwards because you don't want to have to repeat all of that again. And that will definitely stop you from going back and doing the same behavior, expecting a different thing. And I'm not saying that once you lose the weight and once you get toned up and once you get where you want to be, that you can't have a little fun sometimes, because life is about living and life is about feeling free and life is about experiences and enjoying good food and, you know, every now and then a glass of wine, you know. But I'm saying the habits that got you into the trouble with the weight gain and the, you know, the lack of discipline and all of that stuff, you know, remember how you had to get disciplined and remember the process that you had to go through and the pain of it all, and looking at yourself in the mirror and being unsatisfied and wish you could just get out of your own body or get like liposuction in a day, you know, like, and then realizing you couldn't afford it. I just mean things like that. Remember those feelings of frustration, working out and feeling like you were getting nowhere, yo-yoing. Do you really, when you look at the food and all of that and the bad habits that you, let's say you once had, do you really want to go back there? No. Do you really want to go through all that shit again? No. So remember how lazy you really are, so you don't ever have to work out to that extent or work that hard again. It's a brain thing. It's a reprogramming of your brain and remembering that you don't ever want to have to work that hard again to get to just being at maintenance or, you know, even at your goal. If you've completed your goal, then you remember you don't ever want to go backwards. And not to say that you will necessarily, but you just don't want to go back into those behaviors that could potentially send you spiraling in a bad direction. So that's how I psych myself out. I had a weight problem. I used to be 165 pounds back in the day, and I was in my 20s, and it was a terrible time to be overweight. And, you know, you're coming of age, you don't have any confidence, you were thin all your life, and then you're in your 20s, and you're like, you know, 20 pounds heavier, and you're like, how did I get here? That's the thing that I reference to, and that's the time period of my life that I had the least amount of confidence, that I reference to every time I want to slip backwards. And I've had 2 pregnancies, you know, I've done all that stuff with weight gain and weight loss, and it's always the same. It never changes. I never want to go back to having to lose the weight again. So I always maintain, or I lose. I stay within a frame where I know that I can stay successful, you know? And if that means maybe losing a little extra weight so that you have room to grow and put back a little bit more later, and you're not so confined to like a maintenance diet necessarily, then do that. But be intuitive with how you feel, how you look while tracking. If you want to track, yes, I think tracking is very good. It practices, you know, self-control and discipline. I don't think you have to be like micro crazy about it. Like some people, unless you're on a serious program for an event, or, you know, you're somebody of importance that needs to be seen publicly a lot and you're trying to lose some weight, then yeah, then you want to really be disciplined. If you're going to be in a movie, you know, who knows? But I'm just saying, like, if you're just an everyday person, you don't have to be crazy about it, but you have to always have it here. Like, roughly, what did you eat? You know, like sometimes I'll just do it in my head. I'll be like, okay, I had, you know, this thing over here around noon, and then I had a little bit of like this at 5 or 6, but you don't have to be crazy about it. I think sometimes people can get too obsessed with like the minutia and all that, and it's just really not necessary, because I'm sure if you exercise or you did something physical that day, or you did one of my short wall Pilates videos, workouts, then you weren't that little extra off, you know? I'm not saying develop some sort of disorder where you're obsessing about, you know, not ever gaining weight back, but I am saying remember that no one's really motivated to lose weight. You know what I mean? Nobody's really like, oh, I just can't wait to work hard to lose weight. That's why I take it and I make it seem like something that's not work. It's just mental, in the sense that you'll do what it takes to never have to work that hard again. So that you can maintain forever, right? It makes sense to me. It's logical, to be able to not work hard, but be, you know, a healthy weight your whole life. So, and that's how it really is supposed to be. We're not supposed to be doing these, you know, just working out to lose weight so strenuously. Working out should be like adjacent to a healthy body that you're maintaining and taking care of. It shouldn't be this thing like, I'm trying to think of a good example of like maybe a reality show that once came out where they worked out really intense to the point where they were passing out and falling on, you know, treadmills and whatnot. And, you know, they lost weight for the show, but they weren't taught how to mentally handle the ups and the downs that happens and occurs when you lose and gain weight, and in your life, like the things going on in your life that can affect that. And if you don't have the mental skills and the reprogramming skills to keep the weight off with your mindset, then it doesn't matter how much exercise you do and how many crazy diets you go on, you haven't psyched yourself out mentally. So you cannot succeed. I hope that makes sense. You have to psych yourself out mentally, because everything in our brains is basically noise, and we have to get focused on what noise is actually valuable and what noise is waste. You know, just throw it away. It's useless. So I would say get focused on, you know, what is going to be your thing. And that was my thing. Maybe my thing doesn't work for everybody, reminding myself how incredibly lazy I am actually, and that's why I don't want to ever gain weight again, works for me. And I still work out, and don't take it the wrong, like I don't work out or I don't care about what I eat. I'm very diligent about all those things, but I just don't like, it's not what 100% helps me. What 100% helps me is knowing that I never want to go back, and that being in that mental mindset all the time, whether I'm working out or not, or eating 100% right or not, I know that I'm never going to go out the box. I'm never going to go crazy, and I'm never going to go do anything that's going to just totally, you know, like not work out for years and binge eat and eat all kinds of crap. Like, I know I'm never going to do something like that again. I just simply do not have what it takes to go backwards and have to redo everything I went through, you know, because my fitness journey was a long journey. It was most of my life. And now that I'm 50, I don't want to go back down that path. Like, so it's literally a diary. So whatever it works for you, it might not be that. Maybe it might be a trigger, remembering how people treated you, you know, and knowing that's why you don't want to go back, or remembering that feeling of isolation when other women were able to maybe, you know, look good in a gown or go to some kind of beach party, and you didn't feel like you could uncover, you know, you had to be the only girl in the room covered up or something. Like, I have those things too, you know, feeling like you couldn't wear a bikini because there's certain areas of your body you didn't want seen, you know. These are all things that remind me that I don't want to go back. But the one major one is that I just don't have the motivation to go back, you know. And so that's what works for me. And I told somebody that the other day, and they thought that was hilarious. They also thought it was a great thought to have, you know, in terms of maintenance. So keep that in mind when you start a program and when you're on this fitness journey, or even if you've reached your goal, but you're kind of wishy-washy and you're worried or you're stressed or you're obsessing about food and all this other stuff, you know, that's all, you know, kind of part of it sometimes. But the bottom line is just remind yourself how far you came. It's so simple, but yeah, we don't do it. We don't do it. And it's right in our faces, but we don't do it. And that is reminding ourselves that, you know, we're new now. We've gotten to where we want to go, and it's just time to stay there. And don't go back. Don't go back, because you don't really have, you know, you might have and the thing that I've seen so many people do this, where they go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I wonder if they almost like the challenge of it all, or the work of it all. And that they don't really mentally believe that they deserve to be thin people and see themselves as a thin person. And that's also a psychological thing. So if you feel like you don't deserve to look a certain way, that's going to hold you back. That's something that is mental. That's not how many times you work out. That's not the diets. That's not anything. That is all right here. So if you feel like, a lot of people that have weight problems feel like they don't deserve to be thin, so that's why they yo-yo back. They don't see themselves as that thin person. Even when they achieve it, they don't see themselves as that, and then they end up going back to a big person because that's their comfort zone or something, you know? So, but remember that weight loss, when done properly, is always healthier than having extra weight on your body and extra weight on your bones, especially if it's non-proportional with your body, and you know, you don't have the energy, you're not healthy, you know, it's about health first. So I just wanted to put that out there too, to say that it's not always about the physical, the actual, you know, aesthetic of it all. It's about, you know, achieving a healthy body, you know, and a healthy mind. That's what the whole weight loss journey is about. So with that being said, I'm kind of hoarse today. It is Thanksgiving, but I wanted to get this out today because, you know, one, happy Thanksgiving. Don't psych yourself out. Don't eat too much. And remember that it's a mind first. It's always your mind first. Your mind is the biggest dictator about everything you do in life. So what you believe you will achieve is such a true statement. And that's what's kept me at maintenance and below my maintenance, and surprising me with even lower, you know, more healthier, fitter body than I ever expected in my 50s. So it's your mindset. And I haven't reached my goals. It doesn't mean that I'm, just because I'm kind of naturally not as motivated, I have that lazy side to me. It does not mean that I'm still not working on myself and getting better and better and better, because I am, but I just don't have to start from the beginning anymore. Nobody wants to go back to the beginning. You want to keep on with this fitness journey because it is a journey. It's a lifelong haul. And I'm going to have more videos on this about mindset and fitness and how to psych your mind out to be your best version. I kind of want to put manifestation with fitness now because I use a lot of manifestation. I don't really talk about it a lot on the channel thus far, but it is something that I really believe in and am using myself to get to my best version so that I can help others. And it's all mental first. Everything is mental first. Hey mamas, welcome back to my channel. So it has been a minute since I have posted anything on YouTube. I've been doing shorts, but I haven't done any long form content for a couple weeks now. Trying to get into the swing of doing long form content, but it is really not something that I am used to anymore. Being on TikTok and IG and everywhere else with short form. But I'm here and I'm trying, so please give me another chance. But anyway, this is going to be about basically how to stay lean, thin, over 50, or over 40, which I am, and even over 30, through no actual motivation or discipline, but brain reprogramming. So let me explain. Basically what I mean by that is I do a lot of, to stay 114 pounds, which I currently am, I do a lot of toned. I do a lot of mental reprogramming. And what I mean by that is I don't, stress out about food and what I'm going to eat. If I want to eat a lot one day, I'm going to eat a lot that day. I'm going to, cycle back to maybe eating a little less the next day, whatever works for whatever's going on. Because life is not like this straight, perfect line. Life takes us in all different kinds of directions. And sometimes we're not always perfect with the way we eat, depending on your lifestyle, what you do for work, etc. And I think they tend to generalize things when they're talking about eating habits and diet. They always want to kind of put us in this box of okay, well, you're this body type, or you do this fitness level, so you should eat this and this amount of calories per day, and everything's micro calories and your BMI, and all of that is important. You need to know all that stuff. And when you're first starting a diet plan, you should track your calories. But what I do is more mental than any of that, and that's what works best for me, and I'm going to give you guys that tip today, so stay tuned.